applause. From the very family of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Give her a round of applause. And we have a young sister attorney here also who will have some brief remarks in the opening parts. Attorney Reese Everson from the National Reparations League. Let's give her a round of applause. All right, and so the purpose of our forum here is for Dr. Cornel West, our presidential candidate, to give a national policy statement. He's going to give a national policy statement on his campaign and what it means on these critical issues that we're about to discuss today. We've heard and seen Dr. Cornel West on CNN, is that right? Yes. And we've heard of his campaign. Mr. Hassan, I need you double time here, sir, right here. We've heard and seen him around the country, is that right? And we've heard bits and pieces of him, right? But it's time now that this candidate, and I want to say our candidate, I will say my candidate, and I'll tell you that and why in a moment, but we want to hear his official positions on critical issues that are on the table in this hour, critical issues. And those critical issues are United States foreign policy, United States foreign policy, United States foreign policy on the war against Gaza, what they call in the war in Gaza. We want to know specifically, what does presidential candidate Cornel West, what is his stance on U.S. foreign policy in Gaza? What is his stance on the uprising? Now y'all gonna get still in here one last time. We want reparations, is that right? Yes, what do we want? Reparations. And when do we want it? Now. What do we want? Reparations. And when do we want it? Now. Our candidate today is going to speak to us clearly on United States foreign policy. He's going to speak clearly to us today on United States obligations for human rights under treaties and conventions, and that it is signed at conventions, and what obligations the United States supposedly has towards human rights in this country and in this world. We're going to hear today Cornel West's position on the student uprising. We want to know, what is his position on the uprising? We want to know this. Is Ms. Abdullah ready? Yes or no, fast? Yes or no?
She's not ready to speak, but she is in the chat.
She's in the room? Yeah. Okay, fine. As long as she's in the room and we're ready. Okay. Okay, let's cue her up. When she's queued up, raise your hand, because we'll stop the program and go right to her. Here she is. Okay, so sisters and brothers, what I'm going to do right now is make way for the vice presidential candidate of Dr. Cornel West. And we want to pay careful attention to this woman and this black woman here right now. Her name is Professor Melina Abdullah. Professor Melina Abdullah is the national leader of Black Lives Matter, the grassroots operation with chapters all over this country. She is perhaps the perennial and the leading activist against police brutality and the Black Lives Matter movement anywhere in the country. Make no mistake about it that she is the only Muslim vice presidential candidate, or the only Muslim ever to appear on a presidential ticket in the history of the United States of America, and Dr. Cornel West picked her as his vice presidential candidate. He has picked a black woman And let me tell you this, there's a long difference between the Honorable Kamala Harris, the vice president, and this vice presidential pick. Right. We'll hear why in a few moments. She's in her car. Well, why is she in her car and not here? Because she is fighting this struggle in real time, not on paper. She is about to head into a trial against the Los Angeles Police Department. She's been on trial for a week and has to appear before a judge right now because the police had attacked her home and her case has gone to trial and she's fighting in court. She has been fighting on the front lines with the student organizers at UCLA and USC when the police attack and the students arrested. I want you to hear right now, bring her back. I want you to hear right now from who we want to be the next vice president of the United States of America, a woman of truth and justice in the mold of Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth and Angela Davis and all of the other greats that have come before us. Please welcome and receive the Honorable Vice Presidential Candidate Melina Abdullah. Please give her a strong round of applause. Yes, y'all turn her up.
Great. I'm so honored to be with you all this morning. Brother Malik Zulu Shabazz, it's a blessing and an honor to be with you, even though it's only virtually. Malik Zulu Shabazz and I go all the way back to our Howard University days, and I'm grateful to still be in righteous struggle alongside him as we talk about ending police brutality, ending the terror of police on our folks. Most recently, Black Lives Matter Grassroots was honored to work alongside and continues to work alongside Attorney Shabazz around holding police in Mississippi accountable with the prosecution of those goon squad members, those white police officers who've been terrorizing Black community in Mississippi for generations. And we won a historic victory getting them convicted, and now we're working on ousting the sheriff there and doing additional work in Mississippi with Black Lives Matter Grassroots Mississippi. It's again also my deepest honor to be named as the vice presidential pick for Dr. Cornel West. And Attorney Shabazz and I can both attest to how influential Dr. West has been on our lives, on my life as a scholar, as an undergrad at Howard University, is when I first came in contact with Dr. West, was deeply inspired by his work. At that point, Race Matters had just been released, and it was hugely influential on my work as a scholar as I went on to graduate school at University of Southern California and earned a PhD, really studying Black politics and Black power. I wish I were there with you in person, but as Attorney Shabazz shared, I'm sitting in my car outside the courthouse in Los Angeles. We're in our second week of trial. It looked like for a moment we were going to be able to get a break today and I was going to be able to be with you in person. But unfortunately, I have to be in court today. My child takes the stand today. As we hold police accountable, LAPD swatted my home 3 times in 2020 and 2021. And what that is when there's a false call and then police respond with a really violent response. So they surrounded my home with assault rifles and had a helicopter overhead, forced me out of my home at gunpoint. And all the time they knew that it was a false call. So it was meant to instill terror in the lives of myself and my children. And so we're saying they don't get to get away with that they don't get to retaliate against us simply because they don't like that we're doing work to hold them accountable. And so this is in the name, this lawsuit is in the name of Michael Zinzin, is in the name of so many others who police attempt to terrorize and silence. We will not be silenced. And so that's what this trial is about. Of course, I wish I were with you in person. Again, it's my great honor to be the vice presidential candidate alongside Cornel West. I never anticipated ever running for office. But Dr. West is such an inspiration, and we want to encourage you all to understand that it's not just who he is as a philosopher, who he is as one of the greatest minds of our generation. It's not just what he thinks about and writes about, it's what he stands for. And so I'm so proud of our policy pillars, which are available at CornelWest2024.com, CornelWest2024.com. It is, what this campaign is about is really understanding that the world as it's presented to us doesn't have to be the world that we accept. We don't even have to accept what they tell us our choices are, right? So the powers that be, white supremacist, patriarchal, heteronormative capitalism tells us that the only choices that we have are between the embodiment of evil. That's what Donald Trump represents. He is the embodiment of evil. And then Joe Biden, who my children and others call Genocide Joe, is funding and fueling a genocide, killing tens of thousands of people in the immediate and, hundreds of thousands of people in the long term. And we will not say that we're casting our ballots for either of them. And what this campaign is about saying we can choose something different. So we choose truth, justice, and love. Truth, justice, and love. The truth is that we could house everyone in this country if we weren't spending 62 cents out of every general fund dollar on the military, right? Out of every unrestricted dollar on the military, right? We could house everyone. We could have free higher education for all if we weren't spending our dollars on genocide. And so this campaign is about saying, what if we recaptured the resources that we had and used it for the benefit of our people? Then we could have real economic justice, which means a $27 an hour federal minimum wage. But it also means saying, look, there is generational harm that's come from a country that's built on the stolen land of indigenous people by the stolen labor and lives of our African ancestors through the system of chattel slavery. So economic justice absolutely requires reparations, and we mean real reparations. We mean, yes, the truth of telling how this country was built, but also we mean economic justice in the sense that if you stole, which they did, the resources that came from our forebears, then those goods have to be returned. Those resources have to be returned in the form of reparations. And so we mean real reparations. And I believe we're the only presidential ticket to say that we want real reparations. And under a West Abdullah presidency, we will have real reparations. We want to applaud the phenomenal work of Malik Zulu Shabazz and Afro-Descendant Nation. Black Lives Matter Grassroots has joined the many days long reparations conference, National Reparations Conference, that's just wrapping up there in Washington, D.C., which we believe is just a beautiful sharing of ideas, sharing of commitment, but also doing the actual work. And so reparations accountability, remembering that we have to hold accountable not only government, but also these corporations that have built their fortunes off the theft of labor and the theft of our resources. So I know there's going to be additional accountability. I know that there's going to be additional marches on some of these banks. And we know that there's been phenomenal work done by people like Ta-Nehisi Coates, right? Who said, let's look at banks like Chase Bank. Let's look at Citibank.
That's right.
Let's look at Bank of America. Let's look at Wells Fargo.
That's right.
I know that Attorney Shabazz is going to be leading an action tomorrow, I believe. And so that is so important. We believe in that kind of accountability, and that kind of accountability is being pushed all around this country. I'm actually sharing car space with one of my partners in this struggle and in doing this work. Brother Billion Godson of Africatown Coalition has been doing this kind of work here in Los Angeles, where they protest these banks that have built their fortunes off the back of unpaid Black labor. They've been doing this work for years now, and now that work is beginning to take hold. And so, again, we are committed. The West Abdullah ticket is committed to real reparations. We're committed to sanctions and to the restoration, the repaying of, as Randall Robinson called it, the debt that's owed. This is not a gift. We're not asking. This is a debt that's owed to Black people. This is a debt that's owed to Black people. And so we are demanding that, and under a West Abdullah presidency, we are committed to real reparations for Black people. And so I'll stop there and just say again, thank you. And we look forward to continuing our work. This campaign itself is also work. This is an opportunity for us to usher in the ideas and the different vision of the world that we all know that we want, need, and deserve, and we can have if we're willing to fight and struggle for it. Again, thank you so much. Salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Give her a strong hand. Give her a strong hand. I need more volume on my mic. I need more volume on this mic here. All right, good luck. Bless in court. Keep up the fight. Whichever way you are on the side of right. Honorable Vice President, we thank you so much. Let's give her another round of applause. All right, can we make so Mr. Dantes can have a seat? I want him to be able to get a better shot. We're live on Instagram also. Let's turn off all phones, please. Turn all phones off, please, and don't let anyone through that door. Lock that door, please. Lock that door, please. Everybody's phone off. I hear somebody's phone ringing.
She's the green guy.
All right, we packed in here. Give yourself a round of applause. Once again, we're here for a national policy speech from presidential candidate Cornel West, who is a lifetime struggler and legend in our community. We have a few pre-statements, brief statements from other leaders here, then we're going to bring Dr. West on, and then we'll engage in a dialogue afterwards. But we are here to hear the man that is carrying our cause in this hour, carrying my cause and your cause in this hour. So what I'm going to do right now is to bring on a man from the Earn the Black Vote campaign, all right? He says earn the black vote. And we have a lot of questions about whether our vote is being taken for granted. We have a lot of questions about whether the black vote is being used and abused by both political parties. There's a lot of questions about Dr. West. Is he going to take votes from the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, or why is he in the race? I got my strong opinions on these subject matters, but I've chosen to reserve all of my strong opinions on these subject matters, and I'm going to defer to my guest and to my candidate in this hour because I know that he's going to speak for me. And so therefore, I want to bring to you from Reparations United, Mr. Cam Howard, who will briefly explain the Earn the Black Vote campaign and his striving for a federal reparations commission that he's striving to get from President Joe Biden. Let's bring Mr. Cam Howard on.
Thank you, Brother Minister, Brother Malik. Thank you, Dr. West, for your candidacy, and thank you, Dr. Molina. I am Cam Howard with Reparations United. Reparations United is the leading organization of a national collaborative, the Earn the Black Vote National Collaborative. Our primary goal is to extract a reparations commission by executive order from the president before the election. Last year, the company Resonate identified 2.9 million black voters who voted for President Biden in 2020 say that they disapprove of him going into this next election. 2.9 million black voters, that's 20% of the black voters who voted in the election say they disapprove of President Biden. That number may have increased as a result of the black voters' perception of Biden's handling of the Israeli-Palestine war, or it may have slightly decreased as Biden has taken it upon himself to specifically target the black community at this particular time. But what we do know is that those who disapprove of him are saying they may not vote at all in November. Some are saying they may vote third party. Some are saying they may vote even for Trump. Those who are looking at a possible third party are overwhelmingly saying they're looking at Dr. West.
That's right.
And Dr. Molina. Those disapproving black voters are saying that the black vote, in fact, must be earned. They're tired of being taken for granted, our votes being taken for granted. They're tired of being forced to, as Dr. Molina said, choose between the lesser two evils. They're tired of being held fully accountable to saving this democracy, and yet we get nothing from this democracy. So in fact, they're saying in November, and they're saying it right now, that the black vote has to be earned.
That's right.
Reparations for centuries of crimes against our humanity have shown itself to be the leading issue for black Americans at this time. Student loan debt, voting rights, criminal justice reforms, all are contained within this demand for reparations. Black voters and activists have shown that there is demonstrated political will in America for reparations at this time. In the last Congress, 88% of Democrats in the House and Senate pledged their support for a reparations commission. Unheard of. Governors in the states with the 3 largest cities in America with the largest concentration of black voters have already established reparations commissions in their states: New York, California, and Illinois. Thousands of state and county and city elected officials are creating reparations commissions, task force of subcommittees in over 100 cities and half a dozen states at this current time. 80% of Democrats polled in 2019 said that they were either in favor of or unopposed to a reparations commission. Only 20% of Democrats polled at that time said they opposed a reparations commission. We think that that number is much lower 5 years later. 65% of Gen Z and millennials of all races favor a reparations commission. The political will for federal redress for black Americans has been demonstrated across this country. The Earn the Black Vote campaign just completed a poll in Michigan that states that this issue will drive black voters out in transformative levels, which is a term used by Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee when she read the results of our poll. Anyone desiring the black vote at this time must earn the black vote and must earn the black vote through reparations. This is the only path to victory for any candidate, and we thank Dr. West and Dr. Molina for standing up and saying that they too are pushing this issue of reparations forcefully. Thank you.
Let's give him a strong hand. Let's give him a strong hand. Brother Fahim. All right, we have one of the great national civil rights activists in the building, Mr. John Barnett. Let's give him a hand. All right. Okay, next up, as we push through so we can hear from Dr. Just hold this post. So we can push through and hear from Dr. West, I want you to hear from a former professional basketball player who has the leader of the National Reparations League, who was a co-sponsor of this weekend's great National Reparations Convention. This is the 4th day of our convention. Let's give the convention a strong hand. We've just come from lobbying on Capitol Hill. He has a National Reparations report card. He's a strong black man, about 7 feet tall. All right, so let's bring him on to the rostrum. My brother and our brother, a young man and the hope of our future, Brother President Rashad Singleton of the National Reparations League. Let's receive him.
Greetings, everyone. Greetings. First, giving honor to the Most High and Yeshaya, who is the head of my life. Giving honor to the Honorable Silas Muhammad. It's a blessing to be in your presence, and your beautiful wife as well. Giving honor to the legendary Dr. West. I can't even believe I'm in the room right now. Can we please give a hand for Dr. Cornel West? Brothers and sisters, as you just heard, me and Brother Shabazz have just walked the halls of Congress. Throughout the whole building, we saw posters saying, "I stand with Israel. I stand with Israel. I stand with Israel." We didn't see one poster that said, "I stand for reparations." But the people stand for reparations.
That's right.
So we're here to say, we're no longer satisfied with the crumbs that this government has given us. We want the whole cake. You're not going to satisfy us with just holidays. You're not going to satisfy us with these tokens. Definitely not going to satisfy us with empty apologies. We want the same thing that this government gave Japanese Americans, reparations. Same thing they gave Native Americans, reparations. Same thing they gave slave masters, reparations. They didn't give them voting rights as solutions. They didn't give them holidays. They gave them reparations. So if these other nations of people deserve reparations, then surely the people that built this country deserve reparations. We hear things such as the lesser of two evils. We'll always say things like two heads of the same snake. And if you take the body of a snake and you spread it with two heads, ain't you gonna get bit if you move to the right, and you gonna get bit if you move to the left? My people are tired of being bit. So if it takes a third party, then so be it. But one thing we will not be satisfied with is not having reparations. So we applaud Dr. Cornel West for taking a strong stance on reparations, for he is the only candidate right now that has done so.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
So we are grateful, brother, and as you continue to do this, we're going to hold these other politicians accountable. The National Reparation League has developed the Reparation Report Card. You can go to this at the nationalreparationsleague.com. We are grading politicians on their stance for reparations solely. We no longer care about you coming out and kissing black babies before your election time. We don't care about you coming to our black churches right before election time. We want reparations. We want reparations. We want reparations. And we're not just coming after the politicians. We will be coming after the businesses. Wells Fargo, Barclays Bank, the Catholic Church, University of Georgia, University of North Carolina, all institutions that have our ancestors' blood on their hands, we have found you guilty, and we will be boycotting you effective immediately. Thank you, Dr. Cornel West. Thank you, Honorable Silas Muhammad. This is grateful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Come on, let's give him a further round of applause. That's right, I tell him to keep standing. Because when they see him standing, he makes more men want to stand.
That's right.
All right? You can do better than that. All right, sisters and brothers, as we move this train down to hear from our keynote speaker today, and the keynote speaker to all of America is being broadcast live right now over Dr. West's website, other websites, and national news media. And this speech, this broadcast will be studied today from the politicians and the scientists of America and this world about what is said today. Nations of the earth want to know, is there a moral voice coming out of America?
Right.
Is there any morality in America? Is there any hope coming out of America? Well, we want you to hear today that there is. But before that, we want you to hear from another black woman who is a legend in our struggle, a legend in our international struggle, one who has been fighting in the United Nations along with her husband, the Honorable Silas Muhammad. They've been fighting for years and years for our human rights and our dignity at the United Nations. And we want to let you know that our struggle is headed to the International Court of Justice. That same International Court of Justice that South Africa stood up for and condemned the genocide in Gaza, the same international court is where this reparations struggle is headed. Let us receive now one of the greats in our struggle, Attorney Harriet Abubakar, the wife of the Honorable Silas Muhammad. Let us hear from our queen.
Greetings to all of our listening audience and to everyone present here today. I am representing my husband, the Honorable Silas Muhammad, but I'm also representing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And in that, since I was a little teenager, he took me under his wing. I had lost my parents, and he helped finish raising me up. So all of my life, I have been in this fight, and I am in this fight for the right reason. Today, we are coming together, and we are honoring Cornel West for having the courage to step out there and face this mighty foe that we're all against. And he has what it takes to do it, and he's going to do it. We as Muslims have in the past never been too active with politics, but it's not because we don't understand the power of politics. That's why we aren't, because they haven't been doing anything for us. And they haven't been doing anything for black people. So why waste a vote on white people that are pushing their own agenda and never considering us? That's right. So now times they have been a-changing. And we're not dealing with the same America that we were dealing with before. Now, you're going to have to represent us all. We understand that. But it's our turn now. You can feel it in there, can't you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
This is our turn, and what we want is reparations. And we have been more than patient in getting our reparations. So we have had books galore written on why we should be paid reparations. All of the legal and not legal reasons have been given to the world as to why we need our reparations paid. We've got to close that wealth gap. That's the main thing between us. And then go for self and do something that we as black people want to do for black people. And we can do that. We have the ability. Anybody with the fortitude to survive what our people have gone through for 500 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Certainly has what it takes to build our own nation. Now, some of us are going to want to stay here in America. We built this so-and-so, and we're going to stay here and enjoy some of it. That's your choice. If you want to leave because you're sick and tired of being held back. Because stay here or not, you're going to be held back. You know that. All right. that's your choice. There are other African nations that may or may not have been involved in the slave trade, but some of them are realizing now that it would be better if we came back home, they call it. And some of us are going to want to do that, but under certain circumstances. Now, reparations is about negotiation. And we need to negotiate the terms of these reparations. Just don't use it as a blanket term, reparations. Reparations for us is going to be what we make it be. And don't get so carried away until you forget what's going on in the world around you. You see the wars taking place. If you watch what's going on in Israel, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to know what could happen to us here. Let's be real. Let's address the elephant in the room. All right? So then you have to start thinking like that. What if that happens to me? What if that happens to us? Because your uniform is going to be the color of your skin. And they don't care whether it's dark or different shades of brown or all the way light, bright, and damn near white. You're going to have on a uniform. And no one's going to ask questions. You know, they'll do what they do and then ask questions. So we are here regardless to our political thoughts. And we have to be ready to face the truth of all of this. So I'm speaking on behalf of Afro-descendant nations because we've always been warriors. I pledged my life for this cause. We all have pledged our life for this cause.
Yes, ma'am.
And whether you pledge it or not, you might have to give it up. So why not go all the way? Why not? Thank you. Thank you.
Let's give the attorney for the Afro-descendant nation, Harriet Abubakar, a strong round of applause. Give it to her, please. Here at the National Press Club on behalf of the Afro-descendant nation. All right, we're getting ready now. Okay, just so formally, my name is Brother Attorney Malik Shabazz. I'm here representing as the National President of Black Lawyers for Justice, that great legal organization that is fighting police brutality on behalf of our people all over the country. Please do not open that door again. Now, one more time. We got to act like it if we understand up in here. Sorry about that. Once again, brother, can you stand on the outside of that door and don't let nobody in that door, please? All right, thank you so much. Bear with us. We rocking through this. Again, my name is Brother Attorney Malik Shabazz. I'm the National President of Black Lawyers for Justice, that great legal organization that is fighting police brutality across this country, especially in the state of Mississippi. That's right. I want to thank Dr. Cornel West because he took the time out of his schedule and he came to Mississippi to support our struggle against the Goon Squad and Sheriff Brian Bailey. And because in part of Dr. Cornel West's help coming to help us with the Goon Squad, that group of white racist police officers that tortured and abused my clients, Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, because in part for Dr. West's sacrifice and help, those officers received a total of 132 years in prison. Federal prison time, 132 years. which represent the longest sentences for police brutality ever in America, particularly when the victims are not even dead. And it occurred in the state of Mississippi where they said no justice would come. But because of our fight, our tenacity, and our conviction for justice, we made justice happen where persons had thought that justice could not happen. So I want to thank Dr. West for coming to Mississippi and supporting us and supporting the Emmett Till family and the Emmett Till cause. We here now want to hear his opinions. We seen the student uprising around the country. We seen students of all races boldly standing up across this nation, and we saw them also in encampments, and we saw them standing up for what is right. And we also saw the backlash and the crackdown, and we saw them attacked by police in this country. We want to know what Dr. West's position is on the student uprising. We want to know what his position is on United States foreign policy. We just saw President Joe Biden give another $1 billion of weapons to the state of Israel, right when the Israeli army is menacing Rafah. And he allegedly is giving them warnings, don't go into Rafah. Then we see him turn right around and give them $1 billion worth of weapons to go and bomb Rafah. And we want to know what our candidate says about these 35,000 lives that have been murdered and assassinated and bombed in Gaza. We want to know his position on that, and the world wants to know his position. The world wants to know, is there a candidate coming forth in America that has any sense at all? Any sense at all, any morality at all, any respect for human rights for the peoples and the nations of the earth. America wants to know this and the people want to know this, but I already know it. I don't have no problem telling you straight out, from Black Lawyers for Justice and many lawyers in America and those who are in the police brutality and the reparation struggle, that we endorse Dr. Cornel West as the President of the United States of America. He's the only one that we could ever dream of straightening this madness out. And his Vice President, Sister Melina Abdullah. This is the voice of consciousness in America on the political scene in this hour. We want and must have full and complete reparations. I represent also the Afro-descendant nation as an attorney and conductor in this reparations movement. We have and launched a national reparations boycott and sanctions campaign against the banks and the companies that have robbed us. We are opening and announcing our national sanctions campaign. And what is that? Sanctions? Can you say that? Sanctions. What is that? Sanctions. Say it louder. Sanctions. Let me hear it again. Sanctions. Let me hear it again. Sanctions. It was the Montgomery bus boycott in the 1950s by Sister Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, where our people said that we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. So they pulled out of the Montgomery bus system and they began to form black transportation companies, black cab companies, and they dried up the Montgomery bus system there in Alabama, and that sparked what is called the civil rights movement, or the struggle in the 1950s that led us into the 1960s. But it was from the power of the black dollar. What we're saying you here today, that the reparations movement is taking up to another level. We are no longer talking about it. We're no longer saying what we will do about it. We are taking actions, and we're taking action against companies that are proven to have their roots and their ties into slavery. We're talking about Wells Fargo. Is that who? Who is that? The reparations movement is formally asking all of our people and all of the people in America who have a conscience to pull your money out of Wells Fargo Bank, and to do it now as you hear the sound of my voice and you're watching this broadcast. The reparations movement is demanding that we withdraw out of Wells Fargo. We're demanding that we withdraw out of Barclays Bank. We're demanding that we withdraw out of Capital Capital One Bank, who is tied to the Catholic Church, who our research has shown that the papal bulls and papal decrees sentenced our people to the transatlantic slave trade, sentenced our people to death many years ago. We have been robbed by the Catholic Church, robbed by the popes, and there are still banks that are doing business with that church today, and one of them is Capital One Bank in Washington, D.C. What bank is that? What bank is that? Yes, we're saying pull your money and your funds out of Capital One Bank. Aetna, New York Life, what Dr. West has called the super capitalists, the oligarchs, those who really control the money. We don't have a candidate in office that is willing to face the super capitalists and the oligarchs and those that run this nation, but the candidate that is sitting right here, the only candidate in the race who has a spine and a backbone. We don't have one other than that, other than the man that's sitting here right now. So we want you to support the National Sanctions Campaign. We want you to go to reparationsboycott.org if you're listening. Reparationsboycott.org, because we must shut them down. Yes. We must what? Shut them down. We must what? Shut them down. We are not going to finance those that have exploited and robbed us and sit here as if we have no willpower. Right. We are not going to sit here and constantly back any political party that treats us like, pardon my language, prostitutes in the middle of the night. And they'll court us in the middle of the night. But in the daytime, when it's time for justice, when it's time for that George Floyd Policing Act, when it's time for reparations, they don't know us and don't even want to see us. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now, if they say that Dr. West, if they say that Dr. West is the wild card in the election, that he is the one that if he takes any vote in the so-called swing states or any of the states, that he could overturn and topple the election. Yep. Oh, well, I say is you're going to have to deal with Dr. West. It's time for you to deal with Dr. West right now, because we're backing Dr. West. And we want you now to hear from who we want to be, who I want to be, the next president of the United States of America and the strongest voice of moral consciousness and for human rights in this election, and a legend in our struggle. Let us receive presidential candidate Dr. Cornel West. Come on, give it to him.
Oh, what a blessing, what an honor, what a privilege. Oh, yes, no, indeed, indeed. I tell you, I wouldn't want to be in any other place than right here in the National Press Club. In Washington, D.C. used to be a chocolate city, but gentrification now has set in. But I want to begin.
Hold on 1 second.
Sure. Everything all right? Yeah, all right. No, indeed, indeed. Indeed, indeed.
Come on, give him another round.
Yeah, no, we're going to, absolutely, no. I want to begin by saluting my dear brothers. Oh, I'm telling you, Malik Shabazz I met almost 30 years ago, and he was on fire. It was at the State of the Black Union with Brother Tavis Smiley. You all remember those meetings we used to have? In fact, we're having another one right before Juneteenth, starting all over again this summer. But when I met my dear brother Malik Shabazz, he was on fire. And after all of these years, the same fire is at work in his heart and his mind and his soul. And that fire has everything to do with what my campaign is about, which is rooted in a deep love of the people. And when you love the people, you tell the truth. You're willing to serve, you're willing to sacrifice, you're willing to take a risk, you're willing to cut against the grain. And the historic victory that he and Brother Trent, is that his name?
Yes, sir.
Well, I met down in Mississippi, the historic victory in the name of our precious brother Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker is not to be underestimated. Because Mississippi is ground zero for struggle for black people. That's why I started my campaign right there in the space of Fannie Lou Hamer's shadow with the Mississippi Democratic Freedom Party, and got the endorsement right away, and I knew I was on the right track. And then there is Brother Malik and Trent and the others, but led by Brother Malik. And got a chance to meet members of the family, and then the victory. It is no small victory. It is an unprecedented historic victory to have some justice in Mississippi, where so many magnificent New World Africans, magnificent black folks have straightened their backs up, but also the center of some of the most vicious white supremacist treatments imaginable. So let's give it up one more time to my dear brother Malik Shabbat. Major, major victory. Major, major victory. Of course, I want to thank all of the voices here, but I want to zero in on the Honorable Silas Muhammad. Oh, I'm telling you, 86 years young. My God. Straight out of Texas, where my mama's from. Marlon, my mama's from Orange, my brother born in Port Arthur, so I have a bias toward Texas, no doubt. But then on to Los Angeles, and then all around the world, the Middle East, Africa, there with the magnificent Esquire lawyer and attorney Harriet, both of them a dynamic duo based on what? Same thing, love for the people. When you love folk, you protect them, you respect them,
That's right.
and you correct them. All three. And to be able to sit here with my dear brother is a blessing. It really is. Let's give it up for my dear brother, the Honorable Silas Muhammad. Lord, 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 Lord. He was telling me about driving Malcolm X around in Los Angeles. Is that right, my brother? Having those dialogues with Malcolm. Of course, yesterday was Malcolm's birthday, just like Lorraine Hansberry, both of them born May the 19th. And so much of what we talk about today is what Malcolm called chickens coming home to roost.
Come on now.
That the veil is being ripped off.
Yes, sir.
So you can see all the lies hiding the crimes, all the mendacity hiding the criminality, and we were told it was about liberty.
Teach.
Hypocrisy on steroids. That's what we're dealing with today.
Yes, sir.
And this campaign, I'm so glad to see my dear sister Tricia Dent. She's head of my Justice for All party in D.C. Give it up for my dear sister. Just wave. People can see your beautiful smile. Can see her beautiful smile. That this campaign ain't nothing but a movement in a tradition of struggle of a great black people who for 400 years have been so chronically hated every day of their lives, but keep dishing out love warriors every generation. It's about love supreme of John Coltrane. It's about love and need love of Stevie Wonder. Those are not just songs, those are love warriors. One of the reasons why we're in the situation we're in today, we don't have enough black spokespersons and black leaders who really love the people. They scared, they intimidated, they afraid, they laughing when it ain't funny and scratching when it don't itch. They too well adjusted to injustice and well adapted to indifference, and therefore you can't depend on them. They lukewarm.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
And when you really, deeply have a commitment to a serious love of the people, and all of us are cracked vessels, so we're going to make mistaken judgments, but you have to be consistent over time.
That's right.
And that's what we don't have enough of. I come from a people who have been terrorized for 400 years.
Yes, sir.
500, my dear sister rightly
Yes, sir.
says. Yet we produce freedom fighters. And yes, we call for freedom for all. We've always been an inclusive people, a global people, an international people, but we begin on the chocolate side of town. We got too many leaders who love everybody but black people.
That's right.
I begin by loving my mama, my daddy, my grandmama, my granddaddy, my aunt, my uncle. I come out of Glen Elder, the chocolate side of Sacramento. I come out of Shiloh Baptist Church of Reverend Willie P. Cook from Brookhaven, Mississippi, who baptized me. I'm deeply influenced by the Black Panther Party of Huey Newton and Erica Huggins and a whole host of others. How come? Even given the different ideologies in politics, they had a love of the people.
Go ahead. Talk to us, Dr. West.
Ah, that's what we need. And the only thing that breaks the back of fear is love.
Yes, sir.
The only thing that gives people a sense of hope and feeling as if there is no hope is people who are willing to manifest the love. Never forget the story of Martin Luther King Jr. I remember Daddy King told me, he said, Brother West, when I saw Martin, my son, I couldn't believe it was the lowest point in my life. He was in that paddy wagon for 4.5 hours in the dark with a German shepherd from ATL, A-Town, Atlanta, driving all the way to Breedsville prison. And when he got out, he couldn't walk a straight line. All he could say was, this is the cross we must bear for the freedom of our people.
Go ahead. Talk to us.
That's love.
Talk to us.
That's concrete.
Talk to us.
That's fleshified.
Yes, sir.
That's manifest. That's something that's real as a heart attack.
Yes, sir. Come on, brother.
The strongest stone and newest foam. That's what I'm talking about. And I'm nothing but just a little small wave in the river of these great black people's tradition of love warriors and freedom fighters. And we also joy shares, given all of our sorrow. So this campaign is as much about Curtis Mayfield and Aretha Franklin as it is Martin Luther King Jr. and Fannie Lou Hamer. Because I'm a jazz man, I'm a blues man. I'm a rhythm and blues man. And when I'm down and out, if I can't put on some Luther Vandross and put on just a little James Brown, and I ain't even got to James Cleveland yet.
Warm it up.
We're talking about the tradition of a people.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And it's a tradition of a people in the midst of an American empire that is experiencing overwhelming spiritual decay and moral decadence, and that's not new. It has been wrestling with spiritual decay and moral decadence for indigenous peoples and black peoples and poor peoples and working peoples for hundreds of years, but now the chicken's coming home to roost.
Come on, come on.
This is a unique historical moment.
Yes, sir.
A distinctive, unprecedented political, cultural, and spiritual moment.
That's right. Come on.
But one of the things we got to do always and already is get our souls intact.
That's right.
We're talking before, my brother Silas, about the spiritual grounds. If you're not ready spiritually to tell the truth and seek justice with style and a smile, just like B.B. King playing Lucille saying, nobody loves me but my mama, and she might be jiving too.
Go ahead, Dr. West.
Yes, we are blues people.
Go ahead.
Mary Baraka understands that. And what does it mean to be a blues people when you're in intellectual politics? It means first, as Coltrane starts off Love Supreme, that first section is acknowledgement. You got to acknowledge the lies,
yes, sir.
Acknowledge the suffering,
yes,
acknowledge the misery,
yes,
acknowledge the overwhelming pain and hurt and scars and bruises of folk.
Yes,
if you
sir.
don't start there, you're already twisted. And we haven't had the kind of spokesmanship and leadership on a collective level to tell the truth of the catastrophe. We got folk talking about problems. There ain't never been no Negro problem in America.
Teach.
There's been catastrophes visited upon at black people and African people. And once you reduce the catastrophic to the problematic, you've already deodorized the situation. And we are funk people. I don't spend time with Bootsy for nothing. I don't love George Clinton for nothing. I don't listen to Sun Ra for nothing. They say we're going to keep it real and raw and funky. We don't want sanitized, sterilized, deodorized discourses. We got to tell the truth, and the truth is always beneath the deodorized level. Most of these politicians, no matter what color they are, they just deodorized.
That's right.
Just little puppets, nothing but just echoes of a silo. Thank God that the Johnson people, when they came up with the anthem for black people, came up with lift every voice, not lift every echo. And if all you're going to be is just an echo of a silo, then tell the people the truth and say you're just concerned about your career. You've given up on your calling. You've given up on telling the truth. You've given up on the funk, and don't fake the funk. And you say, well, Brother West, what's this got to do with a campaign announcement? I'm just setting the stage. You got to understand what the context is.
Warm us up, Doc. Warm us up.
Because I'm coming into electoral politics as somebody whose major qualification is somebody who's been running for justice for 50 years. Somebody who's been trying to tell the truth for 50 years.
That's
somebody
right.
seeking justice for 50 years.
That's right.
And I also been running for Jesus. I want to be honest of where I'm coming from. I love my Muslim brothers and sisters. I don't exist without Malcolm X. I don't exist without Muhammad Ali. This brother here, the Honorable Silas Muhammad, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, a whole host of others, whatever disagreements I have, my love for them is deeper.
All praises are due. Praise God. Praise God.
I'm honest about that. But I'm a Jesus-loving free black man.
We are too.
And that's what gives me my strength. So I don't have to worry about somehow thinking that I don't have the fortitude, I don't have a thick enough armor in order to meet this battle, in order to work through all of these lies and crimes, and to make sure these folk not going to try to render me so afraid and scared that somehow I give up or cave in or sell out. No. No. I'll be a dead man. I'd rather be a corpse than a coward. It's true. Brother Martin used to say, I'd rather be dead than afraid. That's what we need when the moment of the chickens coming home to roost. So when you look at America, the first thing you see is it's an empire, not just a nation. There's been 70 empires since the beginnings of the species coming out of Africa. America's number 68. Every empire comes and goes. Every empire has a history. It emerges, sustained, begins to go down, and usually it's military overreach. Usually it's the corruption of their elites and their politicians. Usually it's the lies coming back and constituting a kind of blowback for them, given all the consequences of the lies that they've been told. Usually it has something to do with everyday people, the citizens, feeling as if they so hopeless and helpless and impotent and frustrated that they're willing to follow a strong man in the form of a tyrant.
Wake us up.
That's where we are. Trump ain't nothing but a bona fide gangster. Wannabe. Not even the real thing. Because I grew up with some dead up gangsters. And I still got a lot of gangster in me, so I know one when I see it. But he's tied to big military, he's tied to big money, so you can't even see what's behind him. Right. And he manipulates the white supremacists and the male supremacists and all the other various forms of hatred and fear that he engages in and indulges in, so that people can't see exactly what he represents. He acts as if somehow he's with the common folk, but he's a billionaire, at least he says he is. And then Biden, acting as if he's some kind of progressive. Come on. Oh, that upset me in Morehouse yesterday. To see the great Morehouse College embrace a war criminal, embrace a genocide enabler, as if he's a grand exemplar of peace and justice. I want to tell the Morehouse brothers and sisters, we were born at night, but not last night. To violate flagrantly the precious legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. You've trot him out as the grand example of Morehouse, and he turns over in his grave because he died talking about what? Poverty. He died talking about what? White supremacy. He died talking about what? Materialism. He died talking about what? Militarism. That's how you measure any nation or empire. How you're treating poor folk. Look at the prisons, look at the hoods, look at the barrios, and see how the people are doing. Jeez. Then you look in the souls of the children and see what they focus on. What's their major attention? Is it the deodorized superficial things of status and spectacle and image, or is it trying to wrestle with integrity, honesty, decency, being part of a community and willingness to take a risk for that community? Mm-hmm. That's Martin King.
Wake us up.
And people say, oh, Brother West, you're always so hard on black folk. No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I'm critical of anybody, but I'm especially critical of black folk because I try to love them so. I'm concerned about them. I'm concerned about the future. I'm concerned about young folk not having access to the best of our history. What went into the making of a Harriet Tubman? What went into the making of a Marcus Garvey? What went into the making of a Ella Baker? Or Toni Morrison. That's the challenge. And the only way young folk will be able to make a connection is be able to see it clearly. We living in a moment now, if folk can't see the sermon, they don't want to hear a sermon. If you don't exemplify it in what you're doing, what you're willing to serve and sacrifice, then all the language in the world is sounding brass and tinkling cymbal. It's empty, it's vacuous. And yes, now that this campaign is beginning to intensify, and you got the choice between the bona fide gangster and the genocide enabler. Where do people go? It reminds me of the words of the great Henry Highland Garnett in 1837. It was the first time that black people were able to come together. These are free Negroes in Philadelphia, 1837. He had one leg. He's leaning on a crutch, probably with a little gangster lean. Henry Highland Garnett in Liberia, making the connections that you all made. And what did he say to black people? He said, black folk, never confuse our situation with that of the Israelites of the Old Testament of Hebrew scripture. For us, Pharaoh is on both sides of the bloody Red Seas. Pharaoh on both sides. What you gonna do? I could hear a beautiful black sister in the back, and it's usually the black women who stand up first. Let's just be honest, brothers. We like to be out there and acting like we so big and bad, but we know that we not too much without our sisters. And one of them said, could somebody just sing a song, please? Or crack a joke? Or somebody touch somebody? Or somebody grin? You see, that's loving folk too. We got to learn how to enable and empower folk in a variety of different ways. Justice is what love looks like in public. Tenderness is what love feels like in private. The black people have been a tender people. Try a little tenderness, says the genius from Macon, Georgia, named Otis Redding. Even Roney is a tenderoni for Bobby Brown. Written by Babyface. That's not just a song. Tender. We got to be tough but tender with each other, even when we disagree. Honest with each other when we disagree. The love is deeper. The tenderness, the kindness. What did James Baldwin say about Malcolm X? Never met a more gentle human being in my life. Look at that perception as opposed to the white mainstream perception of Malcolm. mad, full of rage, indignation. Yes, he's hating white supremacy. He's hating injustice.
Yes,
he's
sir.
hating domination. He's hating subjugation. But he was a gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he was.
And one of the signs of decadence in black America is that we used to be a much more soulful people.
Yes, sir.
And soul ain't nothing but the sharing of a soothing sweetness against the backdrop of grim catastrophe. How do we soothe each other with a sweetness when we all down and out and sometimes think that Pharaoh's on both sides of the bloody Red Seas and somebody raises their voice and say, I think we can make a way out of no way. I think maybe we can step out on nothing and land on something. I think that what seems to be so impossible can still be in our reach if we could create some forms of community and family and solidarity such that we surprise ourselves and in connection with a God that is in larger control. Lo and behold, we surprise the world. That's the history of black people at our best.
Yes, sir.
That's what this campaign is about. You see, so when I think of foreign policy,
Yes, sir.
I say America is an empire. I want to head the empire to dismantle the empire.
Go ahead.
I am an anti-imperialist. What does it mean to dismantle the empire? When 62 sent my dear, magnificent vice presidential candidate and sister and comrade, fellow intellectual, Dr. Melina Abdullah, put it so well, the 62 cents that goes to the military for every dollar. So when it comes to war, we can find trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars when it comes to health care, when it comes to schools, when it comes to safe neighborhoods, when it comes to education, we can't find a penny. That's warped priorities.
Yes, sir.
It shows that we living in an empire where 1% of the population own 90% of the wealth. 3 individuals have wealth equivalent to 50% of the citizens in the country. 160 million people have wealth equivalent to 3 people. That's spiritually sick.
Yes, sir.
Grotesque wealth inequality.
Teach.
And we come from a tradition of abolitionists. We want to abolish slavery. We don't want a liberal version of it. We want to abolish Jim and Jane Crow. We don't want a neoliberal version of it.
Talk to us.
This campaign wants to abolish poverty. It wants to abolish homelessness. Nobody ought to be poor in the richest nation in the history of the world. Most of the money is going in the military. We got to massively disinvest 800 military units around the world, 130 special operations in 130 nations. And all we have to do is look
Lay it out.
at the Congo, look at Haiti. We're going to get to Gaza. But it's not just there. It's all around the world. They call it full spectrum dominance. Broader than Rome, more extensive than the British Empire.
Yes,
That's what
sir.
the American empire brags on, even as it is imploding this very moment. They call it polarization, and I call it gangsterization. It's not just polarization. It's the gangsterization of the country. More and more people don't trust anybody. More and more people willing to grab for their gun in any moment of conflict. That has much to do with the gun violence, not just in the country as a whole, but within the black community. Because if you believe you can militarize the world, then that comes home and you end up militarizing your own society. I have traveled all across the nation. I go to elementary schools. They got more police than they have nurses and counselors. That's a militarized school.
Talk to us.
You
Mr.
teaching young folk.
Talk to us.
You have conflict, go to Miller. Oh, yes, that's what the nation does in the world. That's what it is at home.
Wake it up.
That's spiritual decay. That's moral decadence. And what's behind the foreign policy? Big money. War manufacturers. Big money. Oligarchs. Plutocrats. Multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires behind the scene, gaining access to more and more monies. Do we know, does America know there's $8.7 trillion around the world in tax offshore for tax evasion? And yet we got poor folk who don't have access to health care, don't have access to jobs with a living wage. We got young folk with student debt, even as they graduate. How long can any society sustain itself? What does that have to do with reparations? Everything to do with reparations. Because before you get to reparations, you have to have a lens through which you view the world, in which truth and justice are at the center. And the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. You'll never know the truth about America's past or present unless you listen to the voices of those who suffer. And therefore, if you want to understand America from the vantage point of those who suffer, you begin with those who have been bombarded with white supremacy. Now, I know as black folk, we want to move directly to Africa, but we will never, ever deny the suffering of our indigenous brothers and sisters.
That's right.
They don't have to be in the room for us to tell the truth about their suffering, because we're concerned about truth across the board.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's genocide. There's no accident that America cannot acknowledge genocide in Gaza. It can't even acknowledge genocide in its own history.
Talk to us, man. Talk to us.
And then you come back to the enslavement of African peoples, dignified African peoples, and denial. James Baldwin used to say the innocence itself is the crime. How you gonna be innocent when you're the authorizers of the devastation?
Each. Come on,
Can
Mr.
you
President.
imagine how spiritually sick that is? That's been the history of the country for too long. And on the black side of town, the only way you can keep black people under control is to niggerize us.
Come on, come on.
Talk to us, man.
To get us to believe we're really less beautiful, we're really less intelligent, we're really less moral. We ought to be running around scared all the time, distrusting one another, thinking we can't come together to constitute some solidarity and unity in diversity, and therefore the white supremacy inside of black people makes it difficult for us to straighten our backs up. It's one of the things we learned from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He said, straighten your back up.
Yes, sir.
Right on the front of the newspaper. Islam dignifies.
Teach. Teach us, Dr. West.
Islam dignifies.
Come on, Mr. President.
I got it from Jesus. Even you can be secular, get it your own way, but that was a deep insight of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And it still is.
Yes, it is.
We see it among our young folk these days. Where is the courage? Where is the vision? So reparations is simply an effort to tell the truth about the history of America. Was there damage done? Was there theft that took place? Absolutely. If that's true, then what is the nature of the repair?
Teach.
What is the nature of the reparations? Either you have a commitment to justice or you don't.
Teach.
Come on, come on.
There's nothing tribal about that.
Teach.
There's nothing concerned about one small group. Any group that's been treated in that way deserves reparations. Then why is it that when black folk make the demand, somehow it is off the chart, somehow it's not on the table? Partly because we haven't been strong enough and unified enough to make the demand strong. I recall when William O. Patterson and Paul Robeson and W.B. Du Bois went to the United Nations in 1951 and said what? We charge genocide.
Teach.
We charge genocide, very much like our two dynamic duo traveling the world. Brother Niles, you know what I'm talking about with his beloved daughter. You know what I'm talking about, my brother, straight out of Arkansas. And you go to the world court and you say what? We make a demand of justice. That's what reparations is. It's a demand of justice. And one of the fundamental commitments of this campaign is to have justice across the board. Now, I believe that as citizens, no matter what color you are, you ought to have access to free education, free Medicare. You ought to have access to a job with a living wage, and no one ought to fall below a certain basic income. But reparations for black people is in addition to that, because our plight and predicament has been that of sub-citizens, non-citizens, based on other folk arriving immediately and becoming citizens from Europe. That's the history that needs to be told. That's the kind of vision that this campaign is fundamentally all about. Now, I know I've gone on long, and you all been very, very patient in this regard. But let me end on this note, that even though this is an unprecedented moment, you got a whole lot of people out there that are deeply confused. They don't know where to turn. They don't see any clarity. And it's partly because people so often are speaking out of so many different sides of their mouths. Because see, when you're an echo of a silo, you can say one thing on Monday, something else on Wednesday, forgot what you said on Friday, and act as if you're consistent.
Exactly.
I give you a good example of that in regard to Biden. Biden said the other night in Detroit, he's sitting in front of all these beautiful black folk in Motown, and he says, what would Trump say if January 6th here in the Capitol, instead of the deeply right-wing folk who marched in and violated the place, if it were black people? And you say, yeah, black folk raised that question as soon as it took place. Because everybody knows what would happen. You would have shot us down like we, in smithereens like dogs. You would have tried to crush us like we cockroaches.
Come on, talk to
We understand that. But then I say to Mr. Biden, what would you say if 15,000 white children had been killed and murdered by Palestinians, by Arabs, by Africans, by people of color, by black people? What would have been your response? Do you think your response would have been to hold back for 7 months until the election begins to cut?
No, sir.
No way. White supremacy operating in Gaza, operating in U.S. foreign policy right there in the Middle East, right there on the West Bank. So let's be consistent. There's no way that you would provide billions and billions of dollars of new military equipment, killing those children and women and men who you know are innocent, and still allow it if somehow those were white children. Let's be morally constant.
Yes, sir. Wake us up.
So what indeed ought to be done? Well, the first thing needs to be done, we got to point out the lies and tell the story about how Israel became a state. The gift of the British Empire in 1917 with the Balmoral Declaration. How did it become a state? 1948 with the United Nations. How is the United Nations going to create a state?
Come on, Mr. President.
Especially when other folk are already there.
Talk to us. Talk to us, man.
Reminds me of the European settlers when they arrived in the New World and said there's no human beings here, it's just buffaloes and Indians. Oh, well, we come from a great black tradition that says Indians are human just like everybody else.
Go ahead.
We don't know about the buffaloes, but we know these indigenous brothers and sisters have exactly the same value as any human being in the world.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Promoting your white supremacist lies in order to justify your power grab and your land grab and your attempt to dominate the continent and call it manifest destiny when it ain't nothing but organized greed and institutional hatred. We got to tell the truth.
Come on, man. Come on.
Tell the truth about Gaza.
Talk to
A
us.
vicious Israeli occupation. Bishop Tutu calling apartheid worse than South Africa. And I know Bishop Tutu. I love that brother. He's a pacifist like Martin King. I'm not a pacifist. I'm just a Christian. On a good day. No, I'm just kidding. Pray for me, pray for me, pray for me. But you know what apartheid means? It means that terrorism is institutionalized every day, just like it's been for black people. That's why our young black folk are rising up in the colleges all around the country, and other folk of all different colors, because they know that when the TV talks about terror, they only mean a particular form of it from a particular group. But we know that terrorism takes a whole host of different forms.
Talk to us, Mr. President.
You see, when you have an American army that kills innocent people, 500,000 Iraqis, and won't say a mumbling word, that is American terrorism.
Talk to us.
When the IDF is killing innocent Palestinians, that is Israeli terrorism.
Talk to us, Mr. President.
Now, I'm against terrorism. I don't believe in killing any innocent folk, no matter. I have strong discussions with my left-wing comrades and so forth. Oh, Brother West, you don't need to be criticizing X or Y. I said, no, I'm a free black man, so I'm going to tell the truth. I'm against killing any innocent folk. I don't care who it is. But I'm also quite aware of the way in which folk don't want to talk about the terrorism from above among the powerful. They only want to talk about counter-terrorist response to the terrorism and call that terrorism. One of the great questions in the history of black people is why it is that we never formed the black version of the Ku Klux Klan. We had Deacons for Defense, Black Panther Party for self-defense. We had the Black Power movement in all of its magnificent ways. And of course, Brother Stokely, Brother Kwame Ture, I was blessed to know him, travel the country with him. It's hard to find somebody love black people more than Stokely Carmichael. And he's my Trinidadian brother, coming in from New York. So he's loving those who used to be called Negroes. Oh, that's powerful. Thanks so much. That's powerful. Because we got a lot of tensions these days with Caribbean black folk and black folk from Mississippi and Arkansas and other places. We've got to acknowledge our differences and accent our commonalities. And nothing wrong from being from Barbados, nothing wrong from being Antigua and so forth. But coming from Mississippi, yeah, you're going to have a different kind of formation, but you're still subject to the same white supremacist abuse, same white supremacist attack, same white supremacist assault, and we had to be able to work together in light of our different cultural and spiritual formations. That's all right. Same is true with our magnificent folk from Africa. And in the end, we're looking for solidarity with oppressed people around the world, no matter what color.
Yes, sir.
What this campaign is about is first and foremost a moment of the global awakening of the chickens coming home to roost for the American empire that's been so tied to organized greed, institutionalized hatred, and routinized indifference to those who are vulnerable, poor and working people.
Wake us up.
So it ends up an indictment of a whole lot of black leadership. And I want to be very clear about this. It's not out of hatred, but it's out of love, but it's a love for the people.
Yes, sir. Right.
See, my brother Al Sharpton gave that funeral eulogy for Brother Tyree in Memphis. And I love Brother Sharpton. I go back 40 years. I've known him. We worked together. I was there when he got out of jail with his blessed wife, Kathleen. But when he said, I want to tell the world about what Martin Luther King Jr. saw when he went up on the mountaintop. We said, Brother Sharpton, what did he see? What did he see, brother? Tell us. He said he saw Barack Obama and Kamala Harris. I said, that ain't what he saw, brother. That ain't what he saw. What did he see? I don't know what he saw, but he didn't see that.
Talk to us. Talk to us.
That's a sign of a black leadership who views the litmus test of black freedom with just black faces in high places rather than Precious Jamal and Letitia on the block wrestling with education that's misguided, mass incarceration, underemployment, unemployment, just wrestling with whether they respect themselves enough, love themselves enough, whether they think they can come together and be a force for good.
Yes, sir.
For too long, in the last 50 years, we've looked up to see what the litmus test of black progress is, to see what the black middle class looks like. And I'm just here to say that I'm from a tradition, from the 25th chapter of Matthew, that says, what you do for the least of these, you do unto me.
Talk to us.
Oh, I want to know what the prisoners are. I was blessed teaching prisons for 51 years, starting in Norfolk where Malcolm was when I was undergrad in college. I want to know what the least of these are in terms of the folk who oftentimes just drifting, don't have rich relations with their fathers, wrestling with their mothers, still unable to sustain deep friendships with their friends. See, that's part of the war against black people and the war against young black people. To ensure they don't cultivate the capacity enough to both love themselves and be able to open themselves to be intimate and vulnerable enough, not just in personal relationships, but in collective relationships. And without that trust, you'll never have a movement. You'll never have any kind of social effort that is collective because we'll never trust each other. That's deep. That's a spiritual and a political and a social and an economic one. We can't even have a strong entrepreneurial class if we don't have black folk who trust each other enough to create institutions to sustain it over time and place.
Talk to us, man.
We can't even sustain our churches any longer when you have these preachers coming in acting like they CEOs rather than pastors. And changing the blood at the bottom of the cross into nothing but thin Kool-Aid that'll never sustain you in the face of catastrophe. Oh, that's a spiritual decay.
Wake us up.
Oh, it brings tears to your eyes of grandmama and granddaddy who sacrificed so much and blood, sweat, and tears poured into us so much love, integrity, honesty, trying to tell us, treat somebody right, help somebody before you die.
Yes, sir.
Oh, what a people.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we are great people. We got to go back and recover. Ain't got nothing to do with the greatness that Trump talks about. He's talking about Alexander the Great. He's talking about Napoleon. He's talking about Genghis Khan. He's talking about Attila. We talking about Fannie Lou Hamer. We talking about Martin King. We talking about Malcolm.
Teach.
I'm talking about a Palestinian Jew with swarthy complexion named Jesus. Yes, we can move to Muhammad too. We can move to prophetic Jewish brothers and sisters too of Amos and Esther. But we're talking about moral and spiritual greatness. This campaign and talking about U.S. foreign policy, talking about Gaza, talking about the students hungry and thirsty for what Ashford and Simpson called the real thing. Not that superficial stuff, not just success, but greatness. Not just material things, but a strong character that allows you to gain access to material things, but those material things don't become the only thing you're concerned about. That's idolatry. That's in part what this campaign is all about. So you can see it's not an ordinary campaign at all.
Yes, sir. Come on now.
Not at all.
Come on now.
Not at all. And only because I don't come from an ordinary tradition. I don't come from an ordinary people. I come from a great tradition, a great people willing to tell the truth, seek justice, and in the end, pay whatever cost it is, because as my dear sister, Dr. Abdullah said, it's in part a debt. And I know I have a debt to my mother and father and granddaddy and grandmama I can never ever repay. Never. And I will always fall short. I'll never be the human being that they were. But at least part of their afterlife is at work in my life. And part of the afterlife of the ancestors of great love warriors and freedom fighters and unbelievable joy spreaders ought to be part of our lives. So that reparations, yes, it's at the center in relation to all of these other issues. And then we shall see what they have to say about what we are and what we do. Thank you all so very much.
Come on now, let's give it up for Dr. Cornel West. Give him a strong round of applause, sisters and brothers. Give it up for him again. Our presidential candidate, the only candidate that will ever speak this kind of truth to power, to the American people, to our people. All right, we're going to get right into the questions. Have a seat. We got a rare moment here. And this is a classic. This has been a quintessential and classic campaign speech on behalf of Dr. West, where he's laid out the campaign strategy, ideology, and philosophy, and what we're here for. If you have a question for Dr. West from here, from any of the speakers, or anyone in the audience, go ahead now. Raise your hand, and I'll call on you. Right there, sir. State your name, and I'll come to you, ma'am.
Sam P.K. Collins from the Washington Informant newspaper. My question for you, Dr. West, many thanks for being here. What's your voter mobilization strategy? What you've been talking about resonates with a population that doesn't go to the ballot box out of this day for the U.S. government. So what's your strategy as far as engaging them and encouraging them to come out to the ballot box in November?
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I understand. Let's give it up for the young brother here, though. We're looking at the future. Looking at the future, this brother here. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Appreciate the question, though. I mean, part of our challenge has been, of course, is that the corporate duopoly, which is dictated by big money, tries to make it difficult for any independent candidate to emerge. And so we had to start from zero. It's interesting that the first state that came out and supported us was Alaska. I said, wow, that's like the National Hockey League, though, isn't it? I said, good God, it was Aurora Party. It has a universal income that's basic, available to everybody, and they agreed with our abolition program in terms of poverty. And that's just building on Martin King's. Then we got Oregon. We went on and on, so Tricia knows what I'm talking about. Now we're up to almost 8 or 9. What happens is most of the states don't open themselves for signatures or money you have to pay until at the very end of May, beginning of June. I'm going to be in Harlem at Marcus Garvey Park tomorrow because New York opens tomorrow. They got 6 weeks, 49,000 signatures. Usually you need about twice as many, so that's 98,000 right there. Because every 1 out of 2 they say is invalid. Who makes the decision? The Democratic and Republican Party officials. So you see how they work. They try to perpetuate themselves, make it more and more difficult. But we plan to be on, we hope, nearly all of the states by September, because by the time the conventions of the Republican and Democratic parties come